The human walked through the ruins of the alien market. The night sky was heavy with clouds, and broken lamps flickered weak light over cracked streets. Shops once full of life now stood empty, their signs broken, their doors hanging loose. The place smelled of rust, smoke, and rain. He was only passing through looking for a place to rest, but the silence made him uneasy. He carried a small pack, and his boots echoed against the stones. Every sound seemed too loud in the dead quiet. Then he heard it. Soft, fragile, almost not there. Please. Human. He stopped, his heart beating faster. The voice was weak, like a whisper carried by the wind. He turned, scanning the shadows between the stalls. Nothing moved. But then again, "Clearer this time, please, human!" The sound came from the corner behind an overturned stall. He stepped closer, careful, his hand brushing against the knife at his belt. "Who's there?" he asked, his voice firm but low. For a moment, silence. Then, from the dark, a small figure crawled forward. It was a girl, an alien girl, thin, shivering, with glowing pale eyes that reflected the weak light. Her skin was marked with dust and bruises, her clothes torn and dirty. She looked no older than 8 or 9 in human years. She knelt at his feet, her hands trembling as she clutched his boot. "Please, pretend I'd to be my daddy, just for one day," she whispered, her voice shaking. The human froze, stunned by her words. Of all things, why this? He stared down at her, unsure if it was a trick. Her eyes, however, told another story, fear mixed with desperate hope. "What are you talking about?" he asked, keeping his tone low. She lifted her head, and he saw tears carving lines through the dirt on her cheeks. "They're coming," she said. "They're looking for me. If they find me alone, they will take me away, but if I'm with a father, they won't." Before he could ask more, heavy footsteps echoed in the distance, the sound of armored boots. The girl's grip on his boot tightened, her small body trembling harder. Her glowing eyes begged him without words. The human's instincts screamed to walk away. This was not his problem, but something about her voice, her desperate plea, made him hesitate. The footsteps grew louder, closer. She whispered again, hurried this time. "Please, human, only one day, just one day, pretend to be my daddy." He looked down at her and then back at the shadows where the soldiers would soon appear. If he left her, she would be taken, maybe worse. If he stayed, danger would follow him too. His jaw tightened, his mind racing. But then he crouched and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Stand up," he said softly, "and hold my hand." Her eyes widened in disbelief, but she obeyed, clutching his hand like it was the only thing in the world keeping her alive. The moment she stood, armored figures appeared at the edge of the street. 3 alien guards, tall and broad, with glowing visors and weapons at their belts. Their steps echoed like thunder as they scanned the ruins. "Have you seen a stray child?" one of them barked, his voice deep and cold. The human squeezed the girl's hand, pulling her slightly behind him. He forced a calm look on his face, tilting his head as if annoyed. "My daughter and I are just passing through," he said, his voice steady. The guards paused, looking at him, then at the girl hiding behind his leg. Her small fingers dug into his coat, shaking, but she kept her face hidden. "Your daughter?" one guard asked, suspicion in his tone. "Yes," the human replied firmly. "We are travelers. She's tired. Leave us be." The guards looked at each other, doubt flickering across their glowing visors. One stepped closer, scanning the girl, but she buried her face deeper, clinging tighter to the human's leg. The human's heart pounded, but his expression stayed cold. Finally, after a tense moment, the guard grunted. "Keep her close, stranger. There are runaways in this district." With that, the guards turned and moved down the street, their footsteps fading into the distance. Only when the last sound of their boots disappeared did the human release the breath he had been holding. The girl collapsed against him, sobbing quietly into his coat. Her words broke in whispers. "Thank you. Thank you, Daddy." He stared down at her, his chest heavy. He had only meant to help for a moment, but something about the way she clung to him, like he was her only shield in the universe, shook him deeply. He knew this was no ordinary encounter. This night was only the beginning. The whisper in the dark had changed everything, and now the hunted alien girl had found her daddy, even if only for one day. The night air was still heavy when the human led the girl away from the broken market. Her hand was cold and small in his, clutching tightly as if letting go meant death. He kept his step steady, but his mind raced. Why did he agree to help her? Why didn't he just walk away? The echo of the guard's boots still rang in his ears. They had not believed him completely. He could feel it. Their eyes had lingered too long. Their voices carried suspicion. He knew this was not over. The girl walked close to him, her glowing eyes darting at every shadow. She was silent now, but he could feel her trembling. After a while, he finally spoke. "What is your name?" The girl hesitated, then whispered, "Lyra." The human nodded, keeping his eyes forward. "Lyra, where were you going before I found you?" Her lips pressed tight, and for a moment he thought she would not answer. Then she whispered, "Nowhere. I had nowhere to go." Her words cut deeper than she knew. The silence between them was broken by a sudden noise. Metal clashing against stone. The human stopped, pulling her closer. From the alley, two shadows stepped forward. Armored guards, the same patrol from before. One raised his hand, signaling for them to stop. "You there." "Wait," the guard barked. The girl gasped and tried to hide behind the human. His jaw tightened, but he forced a calm expression. "What is it now?" he asked, his voice steady though his pulse quickened. The guards exchanged a look. Then one stepped closer. "Your story doesn't match," the alien said coldly. "Travelers do not come through this district at night." The other added, "Show her face, stranger. We must confirm." The human felt Lyra's grip tighten like iron around his arm. Her whole body trembled against him. He could see her lips move, whispering, "Please, don't let them take me." He lowered his head slightly, pretending to shield her from the wind. "She is tired," he said sharply. "You had your answer before, now leave us alone." The guards didn't like that. One reached forward, his armored hand aiming to pull the girl away. The human moved instantly, stepping back and swatting the hand aside with force. "Touch her again," he growled, "and you'll regret it." The guard froze, surprised at his reaction, but his partner raised a weapon, a glowing baton crackling with energy. "Then you must be hiding something," the alien hissed. The tension broke in a heartbeat. The human pulled Lyra close and ran, his boots slamming against the broken stones. The girl clung to him, too frightened to even scream. Behind them, the guards shouted and gave chase. The ruined streets echoed with pounding footsteps. The human turned corners sharply, weaving through fallen beams and broken stalls. He knew the ruins would confuse the guards if he moved fast enough, but the sound of armored pursuit stayed close. "Faster," he urged Lyra, pulling her along. "Don't let go of my hand." Her breath came in sharp gasps, her legs struggling to keep up, but she never let go. They ducked into a narrow alley, the walls closing in on both sides. The human pressed her against the wall, signaling her to stay quiet. He crouched, his own breath heavy but controlled. The sound of boots grew louder, then slowed. The guards' voices echoed. "They went this way, spread out." The girl pressed her face into his coat, tears wetting the fabric. He kept a steady hand on her shoulder, keeping her calm. The guards' shadows passed at the mouth of the alley, scanning the dark. The human stayed still as stone, every muscle locked. For a moment it seemed they would find him, but then one guard growled, "We'll sweep the east side." Their footsteps faded, moving away. Only when the silence stretched long did the human let out the breath he had been holding. Lyra sobbed softly, whispering, "They won't stop. They'll never stop." He looked down at her, her small body trembling, her eyes filled with terror. Something twisted inside him. This was no longer just an act, no longer just a game of pretending. He felt her fear like it was his own. He brushed her tangled hair back from her face, speaking quietly, "As long as you're with me, they won't take you." Her eyes widened, shining with tears. "But you're not really my daddy." His chest tightened at her words. "No," he admitted softly. But tonight, I'll be what you need me to be." The girl buried her face against him again, whispering, "Thank you, Daddy." He lifted her into his arms, carrying her deeper into the ruins. The night stretched ahead, dangerous and uncertain. The guards would not stop. The hunt had only begun, but in that moment, he knew one thing with clarity. He had made a choice. He would not abandon her, not tonight, not tomorrow. The chase had begun, and he would not run alone anymore. The human carried Lyra through the ruins until they reached a quiet corner of the city. There, among broken walls and fallen roofs, he found a half-standing shelter. It was nothing more than stone walls and a roof with holes. But it was hidden from the main road. He set her down gently, letting her sit on an old wooden crate. She hugged her knees tightly, her glowing eyes watching him with fear and trust mixed together. The human leaned against the wall, his arms crossed. "All right, Lyra," he said quietly. "I need to know the truth. Why are they after you?" The girl lowered her head, her small hands trembling. "I told you," she whispered. "I have no family. They left me. I'm useless to them." Her words stung, but the human could tell there was more. He stepped closer, kneeling in front of her, his voice firm but gentle. "They don't send guards to hunt useless children. There's something you're not telling me." Her lips trembled, tears sliding down her dusty cheeks. For a long moment she said nothing, only rocking slightly as if to comfort herself. Then, slowly, she reached into her torn dress, pulling out a small chain. At the end of the chain hung a pendant glowing faintly with blue light. The human frowned, leaning closer. "What is that?" Lyra clutched it tightly as if afraid he would take it from her. "It was my mother's," she whispered, before she threw me away." Her voice cracked, but she forced herself to continue. "She told me never to lose it, never to show it, but when they saw it, everything changed." The human studied the pendant. It was not just jewelry. The glow was strange, pulsing like a heartbeat. It looked alive. "Do you know what it is?" he asked, his voice low. She shook her head quickly. "No, but they do. They called it the key. They said it belongs to their masters. They said a child like me should not hold it." Her small fists tightened around the pendant. "They tried to take it, but I ran and ran until I couldn't anymore, and then I found you." The human's jaw tightened. So that was it. She wasn't just an abandoned child. She carried something powerful, something worth chasing. He sat back, thinking fast. The guards would never stop, not until they had both the girl and the pendant. "Why didn't your family protect you?" he asked carefully. Lyra's eyes dimmed and she whispered, "Because they didn't want me. They said I was weak. They said I wasn't fit for our clan. They gave me away, like trash." Her voice broke, and she pressed her forehead to her knees, sobbing quietly. The human felt a sharp ache in his chest. He knew the feeling of being unwanted, of being pushed aside. Memories of his own childhood flickered through his mind. Cold nights, empty homes, voices that told him he was nothing. He shook the thoughts away, focusing on the girl. "Listen to me," he said firmly, reaching out and placing a hand on her shoulder. She lifted her head, her glowing eyes wet with tears. "You're not trash, you hear me? You're alive and you're stronger than you think. Those guards don't chase trash, they chase something valuable, and that's you." Her lips parted slightly, her voice a whisper. "But I'm scared." He nodded slowly. "Good. That means you're smart. But fear doesn't mean giving up. It means you fight harder." The girl blinked, watching him with wide eyes. For the first time, a faint smile appeared on her face, weak but real. The human leaned back, scanning the broken roof, listening for any sound outside. The city was quiet for now, but he knew it would not last. "They'll be back," he said, "and they'll come harder this time. We need to move at first light." Lyra nodded, clutching the pendant close to her chest, but then she whispered something that made his blood run cold. "They won't stop, because they said the pendant chooses its keeper, and it chose me." The human's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" She shook her head. "When they tried to take it, it burned them. They screamed. They said it bonded with me." She opened her small hand to show the faint glowing marks on her palm. Strange symbols burned into her skin like a brand. The human's stomach twisted. This was bigger than he thought. The pendant was no simple trinket. It was alive, intelligent, and now, it was tied to her, which meant the girl was not only hunted, she was marked. He stood quickly, scanning the shadows again. The night felt heavier, more dangerous. He turned back to her, his voice sharp but steady. Lyra, from now on, you don't let anyone touch that pendant. You keep it hidden. Always. She nodded quickly, her eyes wide. Yes, Daddy. The word caught him off guard, but he didn't correct her because deep inside he knew, pretend or not, he was all she had now, and he had made his choice. He would protect her, no matter what the pendant was, even if the whole galaxy came hunting. The silence stretched, broken only by the distant wind. The human pulled his coat tighter around her small shoulders. Rest now, he said. You'll need your strength tomorrow. The girl leaned against him, clutching the pendant, her breathing, slow and uneven. As she closed her eyes, he stared into the dark. The secrets of the abandoned girl had been revealed. But he knew this was only the beginning, because secrets like these never stayed hidden for long, and when the hunters returned, they would bring more than just guards. They would bring war. The first rays of dawn touched the ruined city. The human stirred awake, his back against the cold stone wall. Beside him, Lyra slept curled like a small bird, her thin body wrapped in his coat. The faint blue glow of the pendant slipped through her fingers, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. He watched her for a moment, torn between fear and something deeper. He had meant to help her only for a night, to fool the guards and then leave, but now she was no longer just a stranger. Her whispered "Daddy" still echoed in his mind. It was supposed to be pretend, but each time she said it, it felt heavier, more real. He shook the thought away as her eyes blinked open, glowing faintly in the pale light. Good morning, she whispered, her voice soft but shy. He nodded, standing and adjusting his pack. We need to move before the guards return. Lyra rose slowly, clutching the pendant and then reaching for his hand without hesitation. Her small fingers slipped into his palm as if it was the most natural thing in the world. He looked down at her, then away, saying nothing. They moved through the broken alleys, sticking to shadows. The city had not yet woken, but danger was always near. As they walked, a group of merchants set up their stalls nearby. The smell of food drifted through the air. Bread, roasted grain, steaming broth. Lyra's steps slowed, her glowing eyes fixed on the food. Her stomach growled loudly, but she turned her face away, ashamed. The human noticed, stopping to kneel beside her. When was the last time you ate? He asked. She shook her head. I don't remember. His chest tightened. He reached into his pack, pulling out the last of his dried rations. It wasn't much, but he placed it into her small hands. Her eyes widened as she stared at the food, then at him. For me? She whispered. He nodded firmly. Eat. She nibbled at it carefully as though afraid it might disappear, and for the first time since he met her, he saw a spark of joy in her glowing eyes. That moment felt heavier than a battle, heavier than a choice. He realized she was no longer pretending when she called him Daddy. She believed it, every bit of it. And somehow he found himself believing it too. As they moved deeper into the city, whispers began to follow them. Locals glanced at the human and the alien girl holding hands. Murmurs rose, some curious, some suspicious, others quietly mocking. Human raising one of them. Strange pair. But others, seeing the girl cling to him, softened, their voices turning into pity. Poor child, one old woman whispered. At least she found someone. The human kept walking, ignoring them, but he felt the weight of every gaze. For Lyra, though the act felt real, at one stall the merchant smiled kindly at her. And who is this little one? He asked warmly. Before the human could speak, Lyra answered, her voice clear and proud. My daddy, she said, clutching his arm tightly. The human froze, caught off guard. The merchant smiled even wider. Ah, a good father, taking care of his daughter. The words lingered like a strange warmth in the human's chest. He almost wanted to correct her, to say it was only pretend, but when he looked down at her hopeful eyes shining, her small smile trembling, he couldn't, so he let the words stay. My daughter, he said softly, his voice steady but heavy with meaning. For a moment he almost believed it completely, but the fragile peace didn't last. From the corner of his eye he caught sight of armored figures moving through the crowd, the same guards, searching, questioning, scanning every face. Lyra noticed them too, and her small hand clutched his coat tightly. Daddy, she whispered, her voice breaking with fear. He bent close, speaking in a low voice. Stay calm. Keep walking. Don't look at them. They moved quickly through the crowd, blending with the merchants and travelers, but the guards glowing. Visors swept across the market, closing in. The human's pulse quickened. He knew one wrong step, one wrong look, and the game would end. As they slipped into a side street, he felt Lyra's hand trembling harder in his. He crouched to her level, gripping her shoulders firmly. Listen, Lyra, he said sharply. You're not alone anymore. I'll protect you, but you have to trust me. Tears welled in her eyes, but she nodded quickly, whispering, I trust you, Daddy. The word struck him again. Not pretend, not play. It was real, at least for her, and against all reason. Against all danger, he realized it had become real for him too. The human wasn't just pretending anymore. The bond had shifted silently and powerfully. He was her father now, not by blood, but by choice, and that choice would not be undone. They moved again, keeping low, slipping through another alley. Behind them, the guards shouted, voices echoing through the streets. The hunt was far from over, but in that moment, the human no longer thought about running alone. Every step he took, every danger he faced was no longer for himself, it was for her. The pretend had become real, and there was no going back. The human led Lyra deeper into the waking city. The market streets were alive now. Vendors, calling out their goods, carts rolling over cobblestones and the smell of spices and baked bread filling the air. For a moment it almost felt safe, hidden among so many voices, but the human never loosened his grip on Lyra's hand. Every shadow, every glance from a stranger, carried danger. The girl stayed close, her wide glowing eyes darting nervously. Clutching the pendant under her clothes, she whispered softly, Daddy, will we always have to run? He didn't answer right away. His eyes scanned the market, watching armored patrols move slowly along the edges. Finally, he said, Maybe, but not forever. The girl nodded, as if that small promise was enough to keep her moving. At one corner, a friendly voice called out, You look tired, traveler. Come, rest your feet. I have food. I have shelter. The human turned to see an alien merchant standing behind a fruit stall. He was older, with gentle eyes and a welcoming smile. Unlike the guards, his tone carried no threat, only kindness. The human hesitated, scanning him carefully. The merchant held up his hands. No tricks, no lies, just kindness, you and the child. Look hungry. Lyra tugged at the human's coat, whispering, Please. I'm hungry. The human finally nodded, deciding to risk it. They followed the merchant behind his stall into a small shaded room. There, he offered them bread and warm broth. Lyra ate eagerly, her eyes lighting up with relief. The human watched her, but his instincts stayed sharp. He never trusted kindness so easily, not in places like this. The merchant sat across from them, smiling kindly. She is your daughter? He asked, his voice soft. The human nodded slowly. Yes, the word felt heavy again, but real. The merchant's smile widened. A good father, rare to see. She is lucky. Lyra leaned against the human's arm, whispering proudly, He's the best daddy. The human's chest tightened at her words. For a while it almost felt peaceful, but peace never lasted long. That night, after Lyra had fallen asleep curled in a corner, the human noticed something. The merchant was gone, his chair empty, the door slightly open. The human's gut twisted. Something was wrong. He stood quickly, checking the window, scanning the street outside. And then he saw them. Shadows moving quickly, armored guards gathering near the stall. The merchant stood with them, speaking quietly, pointing toward the back room. The humans, blood-boiled betrayal. He turned fast, scooping Lyra into his arms, whispering sharply, "Wake up now!" Her eyes blinked open, confused. "Daddy?" "No time," he said, pulling her close. "They found us." Heavy boots slammed against the door. Voices shouted, "Open up! Hand over the child!" The human's jaw tightened, his eyes darting to the window. He kicked it open with one sharp strike, shards scattering onto the ground. "Hold on to me," he ordered, leaping out into the night air. Lyra clung to him, her small hands gripping tight as they landed hard on the street below. The guards stormed into the room above. Shouts, rising in the air, "There! Down there!" The chase began again. The human ran through the crowded alleys, weaving past startled merchants and fleeing animals. Behind them, armored footsteps thundered. Lyra buried her face against his chest, her tears wetting his shirt. "Why did they betray us?" she cried. The human's teeth clenched, his voice sharp. "Because some people only see gold, not lives." The guards grew closer, their voices echoing through the streets. "Stop. Give us the girl and you'll live." The human's anger flared, his voice loud. "Over my dead body." He turned sharply into a narrow street, using every corner and shadow to gain ground. But the guards were relentless, more joining with every block. The human's heart pounded, but he refused to slow. Not with her life in his arms, he spotted an abandoned warehouse ahead, its windows shattered, doors broken. Without hesitation, he slipped inside, vanishing into the darkness. The guard's footsteps thundered past, missing the turn. The human pressed against the wall, his breath heavy. Lyra clutched his shirt, whispering, "Daddy, are we safe?" He shook his head slowly. "Not safe, not yet, but we're alive." She buried her face into him again, her voice breaking. "I thought he was kind. I thought he cared." The human brushed her tangled hair back, whispering firmly, "Remember this, Lyra. Kind words are cheap. Actions show the truth." Her glowing eyes met his, tears shining, but there was also strength growing there. For the first time, she nodded. "I understand." The human tightened his grip on her, his chest heavy. He wanted to give her peace, to let her be a child again. But the galaxy would not allow it, not with the secret she carried, not with the pendant burning against her chest. The night pressed heavy around them, but one thought rang clear in his mind. If the world wanted to betray her, then he would be the one who never would, no matter what it cost. The warehouse was silent, dust floating in the air like ghosts of the past. The human kept his back to the cracked wall, his ears sharp, listening to the echoes of the city outside. Lyra stayed pressed against him, her small hands gripping his shirt, her glowing eyes wide. "With fear, Daddy," she whispered softly. "They won't stop. They'll keep coming." He nodded slowly, his jaw tight. "I know." He looked down at her, then at the faint blue glow of the pendant under her clothes. That was the reason. The curse. The chain that tied her to endless danger. He could run, forever, but they would always find her unless he chose to stop running, unless he chose to fight. He crouched down, looking her in the eyes. "Lyra," he said firmly, "listen to me. Tonight we don't run anymore." Her glowing eyes widened. "But they're too many." His voice hardened. "Maybe, but they bleed like anyone else, and they've forgotten that humans don't scare easy." She stared at him, silent, then slowly nodded. She trusted him, completely. That trust lit a fire in his chest. The sound of boots grew louder outside, dozens of them, the warehouse surrounded. Shadows stretched across the broken windows, the glow of alien visors piercing the dark. A voice boomed from outside. "Human, hand over the child and live. Resist and you both die." The human's lips curled into a hard smile. He whispered to Lyra, "Stay low, stay quiet, and no matter what, don't let go of me." She nodded, clutching his arm tightly. The first crash came. The front door ripped, open, armored soldiers flooding inside. The human moved fast, grabbing a broken metal pipe from the floor. his body low and ready. The first soldier lunged, energy blade crackling. The human sidestepped, swinging the pipe hard into the alien's visor, shattering it in sparks. The soldier fell, groaning. Another charged, but the human kicked a crate into his legs, sending him crashing to the ground. Chaos erupted, shouts, weapons blazing. Lyra ducked. Behind a pillar, her heart racing, but her eyes never left him. To her, he wasn't just pretending anymore. He was her father, fighting like a storm to protect her. The human fought like a man possessed, using the ruins of the warehouse as traps. He knocked over heavy beams, sending them crashing onto squads of soldiers. He swung chains from the ceiling, wrapping them around an alien's neck, yanking him down hard. Every strike, every move was desperate but clever. The aliens had numbers, but he had will, and will was stronger than fear. Still, more kept pouring in, their glowing visors cutting through the dark. The human's body ached, blood running from a cut on his arm, his breath heavy, but he refused to fall, Daddy. Lyra cried, seeing a soldier raising a weapon behind him. Her scream gave him the edge. He spun, throwing the pipe like a spear. It struck the alien square in the chest, knocking him down. The human rushed back to Lyra, crouching low, pulling her into his arms, but then the leader stepped inside, taller than the rest, his armor shining, his voice cold. You can't win, human. She belongs to us. The key is ours. The pendant under Lyra's dress pulsed brighter, as if reacting to his words. She clutched it, trembling, whispering, It's burning. The leader raised his hand. Take them both. The soldiers closed in, weapons humming. The human's heart thundered, but he stood firm, pulling Lyra behind him. If you want her, he growled, you'll have to kill me first. The soldiers hesitated, their steps slowing. Something about his voice, about his stance, carried a weight they couldn't ignore. He was only one man, but in that moment he looked unbreakable. The pendant pulsed again, brighter and brighter. Lyra gasped, her small hand glowing where it touched the chain. The alien leader's eyes widened. It's activating. Light burst from the pendant, filling the warehouse with blinding blue fire. The soldiers stumbled back, shielding their eyes. The human shielded Lyra with his body, holding her tight as the light roared like thunder. When it faded, silence followed. The soldiers were thrown back, groaning, some unconscious, others too shaken to rise. Only the leader remained standing, his visor cracked, his voice shaking with rage. This is not over, he snarled, retreating into the shadows. The key is bound and we will return. The warehouse fell silent again, broken only by the sound of the girl's sobs. The human looked down at her, her face buried in his chest. Her small body shaking, he brushed her hair back gently, whispering, It's over, Lyra. At least for tonight. She looked up at him, tears shining, whispering through trembling lips. You didn't let them take me. He pulled her close, his voice steady but soft. I told you, I'll protect you, always. She buried her face in him again, whispering one word over and over. Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. And in that moment, he knew the truth. It wasn't pretend anymore. It wasn't an act to fool the guards. It was real. He had become her father, not by blood, not by law, but by choice and by fight. And he would never let her go, not until his last breath. The warehouse was quiet now, broken beams and shattered glass glowing faintly under the moonlight. The soldiers were gone, some carried away, others left where they had fallen. But the human remained, standing tall though his body ached with cuts and bruises. Beside him, Lyra leaned against his chest, her small arms wrapped tightly around him. Her breathing was uneven, but she was alive, and in that moment nothing else mattered. He stroked her hair gently, whispering, It's over. For now. She tilted her glowing eyes up at him, her voice trembling. They'll come back, won't they? He didn't lie, yes, he said firmly. But so will I, and next time we'll be ready. The girl's lips trembled, but she nodded slowly. She believed him, completely. He lifted her into his arms, carrying her out of the warehouse, the night air cool against their faces. The city had grown quiet. The market emptying, only distant lights flickering in the dark. As they walked, Lyra spoke softly. "You said you'd only be my daddy for one day?" The human paused, her words heavy. In the silence, she pressed her face against his neck, whispering, "But can you stay my daddy for longer?" His chest tightened, every memory of her fear, her trust, her whispered pleas echoing inside him. He had promised himself it was only pretend, only survival. But now, looking at her, he knew the truth. The choice had already been made. "I'll be your daddy," he said softly, "for more than one day." Her small arms squeezed tighter around him, and he felt her tears wet his shoulder. Not tears of fear this time, but of relief. For the first time, she wasn't alone. They found shelter in an old safe house at the edge of the city, its doors half broken but still enough to hide. Inside, the human set Lyra down, giving her a blanket and food. She curled up on the blanket, still clutching the pendant, but her face looked calmer. He watched her exhaustion pulling at him. His body screamed for rest, but his mind stayed sharp. He knew the battle was not finished. The leader's words echoed, "The key is bound, and we will return." The pendant glowed faintly, its light pulsing with Lyra's heartbeat. It had chosen her, tied itself to her. That meant she would always be hunted, and it meant he would always have to fight. But strangely, he didn't feel trapped. He felt certain, more certain than he had in years. He finally had something worth fighting. For in the quiet, Lyra's voice rose again, small but strong. "Daddy?" "Yes," he answered instantly, surprising even himself with how natural the word felt. "Will you ever leave me?" she whispered, her eyes wide and uncertain. He crouched beside her, brushing her hair back from her face. "No," he said firmly. "Not ever. Not until my last breath." Her glowing eyes softened, shining with trust. She reached out, her tiny hand gripping his rough fingers. "Then I'm not afraid anymore," she whispered. He sat beside her until she drifted into sleep, her breathing calm, the pendant dimming as if resting too. The human stayed awake, watching the shadows move outside, the window. Every sound made his hand drift to the knife at his belt, but beneath the weight of danger he felt something new, something powerful. Not duty, not burden. Family. The galaxy could chase them forever. The guards could send armies, but none of it mattered, because a small alien girl had whispered one desperate plea in the dark, and a human had answered. Now she was his daughter, not by blood but by choice, by bond, by fight, and he would never let her go. As dawn broke once again, he rose and looked out at the endless horizon. The city stretched beyond, filled with unknown dangers, unknown paths, but also a future. He turned back to Lyra, still asleep, clutching the pendant, her face calm. For her, the pretend had become real, and for him too. The story that began with a whisper in the dark would not end after one day. It would last as long as he breathed. The human smiled faintly, whispering into the quiet, "More than one day, little one. As many days as you need." And with that promise, he prepared himself for whatever came next. Because now, he was no longer just a wanderer. He was a father, and no force in the galaxy could take that away.